Today on the Dennis Michael Lynch podcast, I'm going to introduce you to a young man. He's 36 years old. His name is Patrick Casey. He's a podcaster, and he's an up-and-coming pundit slash name you're going to know about. He's representing a lot of kids online. Kids, 36 years old. My God, 36, I had 3 kids already. Well, you know, when you're 56, everybody else is a kid. Anyway, Patrick Casey's going to join me, and it's all unfiltered.
Dennis Michael Lynch gives you his word, and he will never let you down. He will always fight for America.
The only one who really puts his money where his mouth is Dennis Michael Lynch.
Hello, I'm Dennis Michael Lynch, and I thank you for joining me today. Yeah, Thanksgiving, man. I'm going to be eating a lot of turkey. I have not been eating a lot this week, so this way I can have a lot of turkey. And we have friends coming in, and they make the best lasagna in the world. So I don't know how much turkey I'm going to have, because I don't know if Mary's going to say, let's have the lasagna as the starter. But if she does, then I can tell you that I'm not going to have a lot of turkey, because this is lasagna day for me. So yes, Thanksgiving is tomorrow. There will be no show tomorrow, if you don't mind. I'm going to give myself, Ryan, Denny, Ashley, everybody's going to have a little bit of a day off. We could use it on this side. But I do want to say that I hope you have a great Thanksgiving. With that said, Mr. Casey here, we're going to bring in, he has a podcast called Restoring Order. And my son, Denny, said to me, Dad, I think you should interview this guy, because I think he sort of reaches the next set of leaders in terms of, 30-somethings. And so we're going to discuss a lot about Israel, the Muslim Brotherhood, Trump, the problems facing youngsters today, the problems facing America, and where we may be able to go tomorrow. So without further ado, here is Patrick Casey. Patrick, I appreciate you being with me. The timing of having you on could not be better. Let me kind of give you what my concern is here in the United States, especially those people who voted for Trump and who believe that the Democrat Party is only going to destroy America the more power they have. I've been doing this for 20 years. Obviously, I'm a little older than you. I have never, in my 20 years, ever seen the Republican Party more dysfunctional, but I've never seen the Republican punditry and, I guess now podcasting, it used to be radio, but everybody's fighting with each other. Mm-hmm. And my concern, based on history and just based on common sense, is that by doing this, we are creating an incredible void to be filled. This is why the Mandanis of the world, in some part, are starting to dominate. Why youngsters are starting to believe in socialism over capitalism. So when you came across, in fact, my son is 30 years old. He said, Dad, I want you to have Patrick on. I said, okay, fine. I think you're the right guy to talk about this. So do you mind if I ask you how old you are? Or at least the range?
No, that's a perfectly fine question. Yeah, I'm 36 years old.
You're 36. Okay, yeah. So you hit that next generation, right? 20 years my junior. When you look at the landscape of pundits and you look at the landscape of Trump supporters, and especially now in the podcasting world where Ben Shapiro hates Tucker Carlson and Tucker Carlson platforms Nick Fuentes, but then now Nick Fuentes doesn't like Tucker Carlson because he called him an anti-Semite. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, I think Nick Fuentes said something negative about you as well. I mean, it just seems like a lot of infighting. What's your take on all that, and what kind of impact is that going to have on people who are 40 and under?
Sure. So I think some level of bickering between pundits and media figures is to be expected. Some of the personality types attracted to this stuff, I won't say all because that would include you and I, but some of the people who are attracted to the limelight tend to be narcissists, tend to be divas. And I think there's just something about, your personality being your business, even if you aren't a narcissist or whatever, like you really do have to care about public perception, and you are probably going to be a little more sensitive to attacks on your character than maybe, a private person. You don't have to worry about it as much then. So, Yeah, some of that's to be expected. Now there's a lot more of it. And I think it's just downstream from the fact that a lot of this is sort of do it yourself podcasting. There are pros and cons to that. You can say almost anything you want. But also, you don't have like a cushy contract with, Fox News or something. So maybe that leads to a little more e-drama, so to speak. And I think this is a lot of, it reminds me of, people doing internet drama, streamers, whatever. And this is a way to generate, some of it's sincere. They might really dislike the person they're attacking, but some of it's absolutely a way to drive engagement. And the only way you really lose when you're a podcaster or an influencer or whatever is when people stop talking about you. So if your model is ensuring that people talk about you no matter what, then all other concerns are secondary, tertiary. They're just concerns about whether or not what you're saying is true, concerns about whether or not what you're doing is conducive to, the right actually winning. All of that becomes, these are secondary concerns at best. So I think that's a lot of what we're seeing. And to what you said at the beginning there about whether or not the state of the right and whether or not this is going to cause some problems down the line is it's a valid question. I mean, on the one hand, I think that the people that are really that do nothing but complain about Trump all day, a lot of these people aren't even American, as we've kind of seen with some of these the location reveal on Twitter. So I'm not too worried about this. When it comes to like the 2028 election, I think when it comes to subsequent elections, it's going to be probably more about the economy than anything. So a lot of the stuff that people get really worked up about online doesn't necessarily reflect the concerns of the electorate more broadly. But yeah, we are in a very weird time where the right seems more divided than ever, and where there is a rising left. I mean, we have by far the most left-wing New York mayor of all time. And it's, there are questions about whether or not that's going to be something similar we see across the country. So there's definitely, we shouldn't be messing around at the very least.
Yeah, I mean, some of what you said there, I agree with. Some of it I disagree with. Let me go back politely and say what I disagree with. So I agree with you wholeheartedly. It's always about the economy, Patrick. I could tell you, again, at 56 years old, I can tell you that the biggest shocks that I've seen over the course of time is how it is that some people are getting into office. And the one thing I think that Trump had to his advantage when he was running in 2016, and I was watching it very closely. In fact, I had a show on Newsmax at the time. And Trump would talk about the American dream and being able to afford the American dream and bringing it back. And when I look at where we are now, this is the part that I disagree with you on, is that some of the things we're watching now will not impact the 2028 and 2026 election. I think that Donald J. Trump and J.D. Vance are more vulnerable at this very minute as you and I talk than Biden or Obama ever were. And the reason being is this. The youngsters in this country, and again, I'm going to call youngsters 40 and under, and I mean no disrespect by that. My God, when I was 36, I had 3 kids and a 4th on the way. So 36 is not a kid, but I'm using that because I'm an old guy now, and I don't see how it is that the youth today, and I have 3 kids, 30, 27, and 25. I have 4 total, but 3 kids who are of working age. And I watch them struggle. They can't afford anything. And they make good money, Patrick. And so what I hear from them and their friends and other kids their ages is they're starting to not believe in the things that Trump promised and the things he said. And when people start losing confidence and then they have nowhere else to turn, that's why you'll start seeing the stats that say socialism is more favorable to youngsters than capitalism, simply because I feel they fall into survival mode. So if you take that in general and say that there are concerns with this economy and affordability. And then you get the president of the United States, who I voted for 3 times proudly, to say that he's open to the idea of taking 600,000 Chinese students in because it's the only way to save colleges, and that he wants to give more H-1B visas. We have to, because there isn't a talent pool in the United States. I mean, how can you take somebody who's been on the unemployment line and teach him how to make missiles versus, let's say, some guy from India and teach him how to make missiles? The messaging coming out of the White House is not very good, especially to the young kids who are white, because on top of that, they have been told for a very long time now that they are the leading problem. The most risky demographic in the country is the white Christian male. And so they have been beat on, so much so that now when they have the one guy who they thought was going to change it all around showing a favoritism to foreigners. It's a very mixed message. I don't believe in 4D chess nonsense. Tell me what it is. When you go to the doctor, Patrick, you don't say, give me the 4D chess answer to my x-ray. You say, give me what I'm dealing with. And I think that's where it is that we are in trouble right now.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, we can absolutely agree that there are concerns with affordability is the term everyone's using. But yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it's not just the result of Biden inflation. There are a lot of factors involved, decades of bad policies. You obviously have, like you said, so in the example of your children, even if you're making decent money, it's not, there are people that are concerned that they can't make enough. But even if you're making pretty good money, feeling like you're still kind of boxed out from, the life that, not an unreasonable expectation for the life that you should have. Yeah, there are going to be concerns, and there are going to be political ramifications of that. Now, we can talk about New York City, how you have a lot of transplants who, studied something useless and moved to a big city and didn't make it. So now they're resentful. And okay, maybe there are some instances, that's not what we're talking about here, though. Like, there are left wingers who have unrealistic expectations and, blame other people for their bad decisions. But yeah, again, when it comes to your family, that's not the case. And I know plenty of other people for whom that isn't the case as well. So yeah, I don't really know what I think continuing the mass deportations is definitely worthwhile. That is going to reduce the demand for housing. That should make housing more affordable. I think that's a big part of this. When you're talking about, things are expensive, oftentimes like the house is kind of the main thing. That's like, if you want to build wealth and really just enter into a middle class or upper middle class life, then owning a home is kind of step one. And if you feel like you can't get to that step one, then there are going to be problems. And yeah, I'm concerned about that as well, because if this continues being a problem, and then you have, of course, the possibility for AI and cheap foreign workers, these sorts of things will absolutely result in maybe not necessarily, but they will increase the chances of someone like Mamdani, though not him because he wasn't born in America, but someone like him coming along and winning the presidency and just
like AOC.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't think it's too far-fetched that if the situation is bad enough and if people lose faith in Republican solutions, conservative solutions to economic problems, to affordability, to these sorts of things that we're talking about, that younger people who, maybe don't agree with AOC on much else will say, well, yeah, but at the end of the day, I'm going to vote for who is promising to give me like a free house or whatever the policy is. And then, of course, it's not just those economic policies from AOC would be disastrous. They clearly would be. But that you're also selling out that would be terrible for the country when it comes to immigration, anti-white discrimination in, hiring and, university acceptance, these sorts of things that Trump has done a lot of great work recently combating. So yeah, I mean, the Trump administration, they've got 3 years to really make some progress on this. They've got a shorter time frame than that to before midterms. And, we're going to need something better than the 50-year mortgage. I think that was kind of rightly lampooned. And, you read reports where the White House didn't really know the full extent of that. Okay, well, that's a valid critique, the 50-year mortgages. I don't know if that was necessarily like Trump's idea. You have a lot of people, in an administration doing things that maybe you as a president aren't overseeing. There were reports to indicate that, yeah, maybe that wasn't the most well received. People elsewhere in the administration weren't big on that. We need something more though, regardless of what happened with the 50-year mortgages. We need to see something more. I don't profess to have all of the answers, but at the same time, I can still say that this is a problem that the right needs to solve. Otherwise, yeah, if you don't get the economic stuff sorted out, then you're not going to be able to accomplish all of the other things that you want to do.
The people who listen to your program, the people who follow you online, how would you describe them from a demographic standpoint?
Sure. So I would say that they tend to be, and I've looked at my Twitter analytics, and I don't know if Substack has these, but yeah, they tend to be 30s, like late Gen Z, kind of millennial types. I don't have, most of my viewers are not like, 21 and under, but a lot of late 20s, early 30s tends to be age-wise where my audience is. But not all tend to be white. I don't know what an actual racial breakdown would be. I'd say probably 80%. Most are men, but not all of them. And as far as like socioeconomic class, not really getting that from Twitter analytics, but just based on the people I meet and talk to, yeah, just typically middle class to upper middle class, people who went to college and might have, even if their parents are well off, are still expected to make their way in the world. So these are concerns that they share as well.
Okay, so would it be fair if I would just say to you, let's say the average guy listening to you is a 32-year-old white guy?
Yeah, that's pretty close. That's
on or about. Okay.
Yeah.
When you read the comments and you probably see, like I do, a recurring theme, right? What would you say is the one positive thing that is always said time and time again from your 32-year-old white guy listener? What's the one positive thing they say about America, about Trump?
So about Trump, that's probably easier to say because when it comes to the state of the country, people tend to complain quite a bit, and believe me, I get it. But my audience tends to be pretty pro-Trump. They're not uncritical. I'm sure they would agree with some of the critiques that I've said so far, and I'm sure we'll get into. Yeah, but they like the immigration stuff. They like that he ended the border crisis basically overnight. They like that while mass deportations are not something that have happened already, Trump secured $170 billion for immigration enforcement, which is the single biggest increase in immigration enforcement funding in U.S. history. The first crop of new ICE agents won't deploy until January. So by all means, there's plenty more to come. And it's clear that Trump is fighting for this. That's what I think a lot of his detractors are operating in bad faith. If it turns out that $170 billion to mass deportations isn't what's going to get it done, it's that's going to be a learning experience. I don't think like the argument that Trump doesn't want it to happen or he's not doing enough. That's a huge amount of money, right? If ICE and DHS can't get it done, okay, well, I guess hopefully we learn why that much funding doesn't increase. But no, I think those things are going well. People like the stuff Trump's doing to combat anti-white discrimination, anti-male discrimination, so many executive orders. He's made federal funding to many universities contingent on them ceasing to discriminate based on race. And yeah, there's like a lot of good stuff happening in that sense.
All right. So if we were to just bucket it in two bullets, you'd say number one is immigration. Number two is, ridding of the DEI nonsense.
Yeah. Okay. Those are, I think, have been Trump's two biggest accomplishments so far.
What are the two biggest complaints that you hear recurring time and time again?
Okay, so the legal, I will say he's doing very good on illegal immigration, right? Stopping new illegals from getting in and then deporting the ones that are here that shouldn't be. Mm-hmm. Legal immigration is something where, and this is what I would agree that we want to see more action from Trump. Legal immigration and also visa programs. Those are, a lot of those are technically not immigrant programs, immigrant visas, but like the H-1B. We want to see the H-1B program put an end to. Yeah. And, everything that Trump has done on the H-1B program has been like good. He's made it more expensive to get one. Okay. But those are small changes at the end of the day. He's made it so it's a less abused program, and it's going to be one where it's, now you need to prove that these are people coming in or like, actually people that you can't get Americans to do, right? And it's been the big critique of the H-1B program. It's a scam against entry-level American workers, oftentimes recent college graduates. You're not bringing over the best and the brightest, as the dishonest proponents of this program argue. You're bringing over cheap, foreign, often Indian labor, people that are not really qualified to do entry-level computer programming stuff, but they're brought over anyways because they're going to be cheap and docile workers. So Trump has had a lot. He's repeated basically the same gaffe on H-1Bs like 3 times in the past week. And I've pointed out, when you look at what Trump's actually saying, it's not 4D chess. It's just he's confused, and that's its own, problem. But he continues to outline this case with these Hyundai workers. Hyundai is, Trump convinced them to build a big factory here in America. That's good. That's good. That's the reshoring of the onshoring of American industry. That's great. But they needed to bring people over to train the Americans and how to build some of these batteries and stuff. Okay, so long as those people are coming over legally and they're going back after they're done, like, I don't have a problem with that. That's the end result of that is jobs in America, investment in America. That's good. There were problems with, they got raided by ICE. The companies didn't really go through the right loopholes, but Trump keeps referencing H-1B. That's not H-1B. A lot of these people were here on the B-1 visa. They were not H-1B workers. So, it's important to just kind of, people are acting like Trump is expanding the H-1B program. That's not the case. And I've heard some things behind the scenes that Trump is, H-1B numbers might be a little lower than we think. There could be some good things happening that haven't been announced. But regardless of all of that, we want Trump to do more. We want Trump to end the H-1B program, or at the very least make the restrictions so high and so demanding that like very few people get the program. And, he's doing good stuff on OPT. According to a Forbes article, the Trump administration is moving to end the OPT program. This is the program that allows recent foreign college graduates here in America to stay and work for, it's at least 12 months. I think it's 1 to 2 years. I could be a little off, but it's at least 1 year. And, as anyone who understands a visa program and, just legal means to stay in the country understands, it's, people often overstay. If they can find a way to get another, year in the country, sometimes they can turn that into more. The OPT program affects hundreds of thousands of workers. And even if these people are only staying for an extra year or two, okay, those are entry-level college jobs for college graduates that American college students are not getting. So the Trump administration is moving to severely restrict or do away with the OPT program altogether. And I think that's great. And if the Trump administration doesn't do that, they deserve to have their feet held to the fire over that. So I would say legal immigration is something that, it's not like it's a betrayal. Trump's 2024 campaign was almost entirely about illegal immigration, and he's delivering on the deportations and the border security. But we can still hope and demand Trump do more than that. But the one caveat, again, is it's not a betrayal. So.
Yeah. So when I mean, at least for me anyway, when I take a look at what it is that the majority of the argument, I should say the arguing between the pundits or the podcasters, however it is we're calling them these days, it seems like Israel is the big fight. And I don't know who it is that should be credited with this ugly campaign against Jews and Israel. I don't know if it's that the Muslim Brotherhood and all the funding that's from Qatar and Saudi Arabia going into our colleges have done such a great job at just saying Israel sucks, Israel sucks, Israel sucks. And now these college kids are coming out, and, we saw what happened going back a couple of years ago at the college campuses. It's still happening now. The big switch to we hate Israel is out there. And so now the big fight is, do you hate Israel? Do you love Israel? Do you hate Israel? Do you love Israel? I sit back here and I say to myself, why are we even talking about this? Why aren't we just focusing completely in on America? And then so what happens is now people say, well, we are. It's called America First, and we want it to be America First. America first, in my opinion, doesn't mean that you have to hate or love Israel. America first is let's not take in H-1B. Let's not take in 600,000 Chinese students. Let's put the American always at the front of the line. And when everybody's on the line for the American dream and it's in the process, then we can reach our hand around the world and help. And of course, we don't want to see any country be eviscerated by their neighbors. And that's what the Middle East has been. It's been a targeted campaign to end Israel, and they want to end the West as well. But do you think that this fight about Israel is ultimately what has started to drive the division on the right, and therefore what I call be this void starts to get bigger? Is that what it is? Because when I listen to the clips of Nick Fuentes, when I listen to Tucker Carlson, who I know, he used to interview me on Fox all the time. I mean, when I listen to Candace Owens, it's all about Israel. Right. And so I'm wondering, well, again, somebody who reaches a 30-something audience, is that being overplayed, or is it really a concern about how it is that we work or don't work with Israel?
So among younger people, it is. Among the broader electorate, I don't really think that it is. Most Republicans side with Israel over Palestine or Hamas or whatever. But among younger conservatives and just younger people in general, there's far more apprehension toward our relationship with the state of Israel. I just want to be clear. There's absolutely valid critiques of things that the Israeli government has done. I could name things that Bibi has done in recent years I'm not huge on. You could also, there's valid critiques of Jewish organizations, right? Like the ADL has promoted all sorts of anti-white stuff. And, there are conservative Jews who will tell you the same thing. So I'm not against people having critiques of this stuff and talking about it so long as it's in good faith. The problem is once it becomes like a thing that people do, once you're like doing anti-Zionism or doing anti-Semitism, it's just like, how you generate clicks for your podcast and how, why people keep donating to you. Then it just becomes a thing that's not like a means to an end. It's just like its own end. It's not like, well, we need to talk about, Israel stuff because I want less foreign aid there. Okay, there's valid concerns there, whatever. But once it just becomes like, well, we're just talking about it to talk about it because that's just what generates, again, the metrics by which podcasters determine whether or not they're doing a good job. So, yeah, I think there are valid concerns. Look, what happened after October 7th is that the left went totally wild against Israel, against pro-Israel people in America, of course, globally as well, online. And, so the pro-Israel people ended up just kind of ramping up their efforts against that. And, it's not that the pro-Israel people have more power necessarily. They have the different types of power. I mean, the left has, liberal media and so forth. But the right, especially the pro-Israel people, I mean, they were able to, with Trump got elected and he started cracking down on some of the left-wing stuff on these college campuses. A lot of this stuff, it's very easy to say, oh, look, you can't criticize Israel or you'll get hauled off in a van and deported. It's a lot. It's not really the case, but it's easy to make that case to people. So I also think that this stuff is blown up because it appeals to a global audience. Again, with Twitter enabling the country to be visible where someone created their account and post from, you see that a lot of these people that are just, it's funny. I saw some pro-Israel accounts that were just like in like Southeast Asia too. So I guess they were like pretending to be like Israeli. So, but a lot of the really anti-Israel stuff is coming from, it's not that there aren't people in America who don't feel that way, but like if you're an influencer and you want to cater to the widest possible audience, you have to provide narratives that appeal to like the global South, essentially. And Israel's been at the center of attention, and a lot of people have been, they're able to talk about that. So the valid critiques of Israel and, the ADL, stuff like that aside, I absolutely agree with you that talking about Israel all the time is not conducive toward the right winning. At the end of the day, there's like very little that could happen in the Middle East that would be more important than what happens in America. And what would that look like that happens in the Middle East? Well, okay, an actual like another forever war or World War III. But one of the big gripes I have with the anti-Israel crowd is that they've been dishonest about that. Some of them act like we're still at war with Iran. Look, people can think Trump dropped a few bombs that was a little more than some people felt comfortable with. People can disagree with that. Okay, that's not World War III. That's not a forever war. You have people like Dave Smith and Martyr Maid saying that Trump is worse than George W. Bush. Okay, Trump dropping a few bombs is no way near the destructive nature of the global war on terror for America, for other countries. It's just totally ridiculous. And Trump has brought Israel to a far earlier peace deal than Israel would have wanted. Trump is not a slave to Israel. Trump is continues to develop relationships with Gulf states. That again, maybe there's some critiques there, but Israel doesn't like that. They don't like that he took the jet from Qatar, that he hangs out with the Qataris, and he's doing the arms deal with the Saudis. No. So while there are valid critiques of all of that stuff, putting it front and center it takes away from like the real issues that matter here in America. People lie about the potential for World War III. And, they're just, none of these people want to admit that they were wrong, right? These people, and like, I still have some respect for Tucker, although he's gone in a direction generally that I am not huge on. But, he was predicted that like thousands of Americans would be dead if Trump bombed. That would really gave his haters an easy layup. And, the reason why I think this is an ongoing thing, I think a lot of the Israel critical influencers were upset that Trump didn't do what they wanted, that basically he did what Mark Levin wanted, and that, nothing really bad happened as a result of that. So I think that, yeah, and that's always been one of my big issues with the post-October 7th kind of anti-Zionist online right is these people are really against Trump. They're like, oh, you want to support the guy offering immigration restriction? You should be concerned about, about the Palestinians. Like, no, I care about my country. People calling me like a secret Jewish agent or accusing, Patrick Casey of being Jewish himself because I care more about immigration restriction in America than, people dying in the Middle East. Yep. Sorry. That's kind of what America First is about as far as I'm concerned.
It's funny you say that, Patrick Casey and Dennis Lynch. I don't think you could get two more Irish names, but I get it. Same thing too. I get it all the time. What did you spend your $7,000 check on? Like, okay, whatever you say, Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Let's go to Tucker for a second, because I want to focus back in on the messaging that are going to these young people. I look at Tucker Carlson, and like I said, I know him back when I first started going on Fox News. It was probably 2010, 2011, 2012. And he was Fox and Friends Weekend. And a lot of times he would interview me, and then he moved to Fox and Friends during the week. So we got to know each other decently well. And I can tell you that he was always pro Netanyahu, pro Israel, anti-Sharia law. And at some point, that all significantly changed without any real clear precursor of why. And I've sat many different times and tried to, I don't really listen to anybody's podcast other than my own because I don't have the time.
Sure.
But sometimes I'm like, maybe I'm missing something. So let me go in and listen. And every single podcast he has, even if it's what happened on 9/11, somehow it always goes back to the Jews. It's always the Jews. It's always the Jews. It's always the Jews.
Right.
And so, he's the biggest voice by many metrics. He's the biggest voice on the right. The second biggest voice on the right, if you will, I guess, again, from podcasting metrics, is Candace Owens. And now Candace Owens, is saying, I regret telling people to vote for Trump. And she absolutely hates Benjamin Netanyahu and has gone completely anti-Israel. Then you got, Nick Fuentes. This guy is just becoming, bigger than sliced bread. And you listen to him, and he is now fighting with Tucker. And I don't know how he feels about Candace. I really don't give a rat's ass. But and he'll sit there and, he's always saying bad things about the Jews and about, Israel. And I don't mean the Jewish people per se. I say Jews as we keep on giving money to the Jews, and the Jews run DC and all this other different stuff. And so I think to myself, if that sort of messaging continues to happen, what we're going to see is the Muslim Brotherhood, the Islamic culture fill that void. That to me is the greatest concern of all, is that when you take a group that has said they want to come over to the West and take over from within, I sit here and say every single time that the three of those podcasters keep on saying bad things, that these are like it's the devil. Israel is the devil. We're opening up the box for who I truly believe is the devil. And that is the Islamic world that does not believe in what it is that we stand for. And I think slowly but surely we're starting to see that start to creep in. I mean, I tell you right now, if I went and asked any one of those three that I just brought up to you, who would you rather see run the city of New York, Mamdani or Benjamin Netanyahu? I think all of them would say Mamdani, who is a Democrat, socialist,
Right.
Islamic terrorist sympathizer, as far as I'm concerned. And I say to myself, how the hell did we get here? What are you missing? And so, I mean, what's your take on that? I mean, do you see a future problem with that pounding of the messaging all the time about anti-Israel? And I agree with you. There's some things that Israel have done that I say isn't great. Nobody's perfect. A lot of things Trump's doing, not perfect. Sure. But to make these people out to where they want to take over and destroy America, when really I think it's the other group of people who want to take over and destroy America, I see we have a real messaging problem on the right.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm not too familiar with the Muslim Brotherhood. I mean, I know who they are. I don't know like the extent of what they're up to in America. I'm sure it's not good. I'm absolutely against radical Islam. I think that it's more so the fact that it's been more of an issue in Europe than in America, just given the demographics of the immigrants that America and European countries respectively have received, has kind of led some people, myself included, to not dismiss the threat of Islam in America, but just say, it's not as big of a deal. You know, in places like Dearborn and, Minnesota, you've got problems there for sure. But in most of the country, it's not the case. Okay. But I think that we absolutely are. That's one thing I really don't like about the pro-Islam or the anti-Zionist kind of right online is a lot of these people were talking about a Christian Muslim alliance, and that's stuff like that's obviously opening the door for bad actors, Islamists who want to influence our country in a bad way, to be sure. So yeah, I'm absolutely against the radical Islamic stuff. There is something with the Muslim Brotherhood. There's a door that's being opened as a result of all this bickering about Israel on the right. I just think that it's really playing to the left's advantage. And I'm sure the Muslim Brotherhood is working with the left, as is often the case. Yeah, that's really the case. The Muslim left is seeing this infighting and bickering over there's a quote from Jimmy Carville, where he said something like, what did he say? Oh, he says, once they finish bickering about the Hitler stuff, once they sort out the Hitler stuff, I'm sure they'll kind of go on and succeed. And he was like, you got to understand how fun this is as a Democrat. And it's like, yeah, a lot of this stuff is just completely idiotic. And look, the anti-Israel stuff is just, it gets traction on social media. I mean, yeah, Candace and Tucker, they're like some of the biggest podcasts, and they're doing what benefits them. They're catering in some cases to a third world audience. And it's really just the fact that people in America are taking this stuff seriously. I don't think it really vibes with the electorate, but politically connected people, even if they disagree with it, oh, wow, millions of views on this clip or on this tweet of this podcast. And it's like, okay, well, if you knew that, only a quarter of those were actual Americans, and only a fraction of those, their ancestors have been in the country longer than a generation, would you really be as concerned about, that this is a narrative? Oh, Trump sold out to Israel. No, you wouldn't. You absolutely would not. And so while I like the introduction of the national origin, country of origin feature on Twitter, that's good. Elon Musk needs to make likes private again. Because, and I think there's a lot of fake engagement too. I mean, stuff, it's not all fake, but You can go on any social media site. You can type in buy Rumble views, and you can buy a few 100,000 for like a few $100s. You can do it on Twitter. And the fact that you can't see likes on Twitter now means it's easier than ever to see, and you can't see all of the retweets too. You used to, if 1,000 people retweeted something in the past, you used to be able to scroll through all 1,000 of those retweets. Now you get to see like a few dozen of them. So I'm really thankful to Elon Musk for buying the site. I was banned previously, so he brought me back. I would, a lot of stuff that I have going for me now would not have going for me were it not for Elon Musk buying the site and bringing me back. So I'm grateful, but at the same time, he's done a lot to make the site just way easier to game. And all of this just isn't good. But I think at the end of the day, it's the smarter people on the right who are giving this stuff any play, treating it as more than, as representative of the electorate that are, that are kind of playing themselves. And I think this is what happened to Kevin Roberts. Did you see the whole deal so he's the president of the Heritage Foundation, and they had been under increasing pressure to clarify whether or not they're pro Tucker, because they have, the Heritage has like an official association or of some sort with Tucker. And Kevin Roberts came out and like viciously denounced, with a statement that one of his aides wrote, viciously denounced the people taking issue with Tucker. And that's not really what a lot of people wanted to hear. So he had to go on an apology tour where he was saying, I'm sorry. Yeah, I didn't want me to downplay like the threat of, anti-Semitism, of actual Jew hatred, blah, blah, blah. And it was the kind of thing where if he just hadn't made the first statement, he wouldn't have had to go on the apology tour. But the thing was, he still didn't disavow Tucker. He, went to no end about talking about how the evils of Jew hatred and anti-Semitism and affirming his support for Israel. He didn't disavow Tucker. Okay. And there's still people to this day calling for his resignation because he didn't do that. Well, Tucker goes on some guy's podcast sometime last week, and he says, he refers to Kevin Roberts as a former friend. He said it basically implies he's dead to him, that he doesn't respect him anymore. So it's like, okay, these people are like, well, Tucker is so big and, so important. Can't say anything negative about him. Okay, well, he doesn't really have your back. It's kind of like, I've seen this at a smaller scale with kind of like edgy online right personalities where they, through their own actions, associations, and statements render themselves like extremely toxic, radioactive, controversial. And then they demand that everyone like 100% defends them and is, they don't really seem to reciprocate that. And it's just kind of, doesn't really make it wise to associate with or to defend someone like that, because it's kind of a ridiculous situation. So, it's hard to say where all of this is going, but it's not, I think people overstate the problem, but it is not a good place for the punditry to be at.
Usually I don't listen as much as I listen in our conversation. I'll go back and forth a little more, but I'm trying to learn as much as I can from you because of your age and my age. And you said something that was very interesting to me. And I bet you it would be a different story if two things were around. Number one, you said, and I appreciate you being honest on it. You said, I don't know a whole lot about the Muslim Brotherhood. And the first thing that jumps up into my mind is son of a gun. I wonder if we had more podcasters, especially the bigger names, shining a light on the Muslim Brotherhood like they are on the Mossad or on Benjamin Netanyahu, right, would more people be like, whoa, wait a second. I'm pro Palestine from, and do I know what these people do to gays? So it's antithetical. And one thing, they're sitting there at, the gay parade, and the second thing, they're waving a Palestinian flag, and they're supporting Hamas, who would literally take a gay and throw him off the bridge in 2 seconds flat. And you just sit there and you say, why don't these kids know? And they don't know for two reasons. Number one is because colleges are not going to teach it, Patrick. The Qatar, Saudi Arabia, you name it, Egypt, they're all paying the colleges gargantuan, hundreds of millions, in some cases billions of dollars collectively, to steer the way these colleges can and cannot teach kids. And then when they're listening to podcasters, the podcasters that we've mentioned here a couple of times, and others are also going down the beating of the drum on the bad side of Israel, never talking about the Muslim Brotherhood. I mean, Trump is now finally saying he's going to designate them as a terrorist organization. Like, hey, why did it take so long? I mean, we did it for Antifa. Now we're doing it for them. Thank goodness. And maybe now that will bring a little bit of sunshine onto what it is that these people are all about. And I think the second thing that really hurt is, Charlie Kirk, when people are talking about Charlie Kirk now, and I don't mean Candace, who, every day she's got another. Candace is going to tell you who killed Charlie Kirk right after the commercial break. It's one of those things. And, discount her, right? But the one thing that Charlie Kirk was doing, and he was starting to do very effectively, is he was starting to teach about the dangers of Islam, the Muslim Brotherhood, and Islam in America. But instead of that being what it is people talk about when it's Charlie Kirk, it's all about whether or not the Israelis killed him or not, because he was moving away from the Israeli movement. And it's like, man, I'm telling you, I've been in this for long enough to know that somebody has finally figured out the game of messaging, because even Charlie Kirk's death, I mean, if you go back and take a look at some of the things that Charlie said about Islam, the Muslim Brotherhood, he said the left is using Islam to take over the United States of America. I will give you a point of something that's happening right now. I don't know if you know the story or not. You should in the days to come. Have you heard about the 3 guys who right now in Florida are up on a hate crime?
Okay. Was this it was at a college?
Yeah. So I'll give you the short story. I'll give you the very short story of it. There's let's just say about 15 Islamic men throw their prayer rugs down in the parking lot. I think it's at University of Southern Florida, and they start doing prayers to Allah in the middle of the parking lot. These 3 white guys look just like you and me. Only difference is I think one of the guys had a camouflage pants on, so maybe a little bit more. At least the visual looked a little bit out there, if you will. Sure. And so what they did was they went up to the 3 Islamic guys. I'm sorry, the 3 of them went up to the 10 Islamic guys and started to preach that Jesus is king and that Muhammad was a rapist. And, they were disturbing, if you will, the peaceful part of the quiet that one would want when they're praying. But it was no different than when a pro-Trumper is on the corner and he's got some Antifa style or some blue-haired crazy screaming in their face that you're a fascist, you're a racist, all the other stuff. That's allowed under free speech. But these guys, they were, I guess you would say, interrupting the prayer without touching anybody or condoning any kind of violence or starting any kind of violence, just being disruptors, rude, but at the same time, that's your First Amendment right. And then one guy said, hey, does anybody want any bacon? Because bacon is a dirty food in the world of Islam. Right. And said, hey, come on, anybody? Bacon, anybody? These guys are being charged with felonies that could land them in jail and hate crimes assigned to it. And I think their behavior is unbecoming of what one should do. If you want to drown out somebody, do a bullhorn or put a Metallica on 10 on your car. Do something of that nature if that's what you're going to do. I personally would have looked, shook my head and walked away. But, they went, hey, we want to interrupt this. We want to be louder than they are. But the fact that they're now going to be held on a hate crime and possibly serve time in jail, I can tell you right now, I've been doing this for 20 years. I know exactly what that is. That is, we're going to use these 3 as examples. So this way, nobody tries to interrupt prayers to Mecca. Yeah. So to that degree, that's what scares me, because Charlie Kirk, I mean, if you wanted to say to me, who do you think got Charlie Kirk? I'd say, I think it was the kid who was on the roof. But if they said, well, no, that's not plausible. He didn't have any bullets in the gun. It was somebody else. I don't know if I picked the Israelis as much as I would wind up picking the Islamics that Charlie was talking about every single day, throwing up the warnings. And now with Charlie's voice gone, I'm afraid that there's no messenger on the younger side there who's bringing any opposite argument to the anti-Israel argument.
Yeah, so that situation is crazy. Yeah, I'm not an attorney, but I'd hope that that's the kind of thing where they threw the charges at them and with knowing that they probably won't stick, trying to make sort of scare people off. But so yeah, I saw the clip in passing. So they didn't have any bacon on them. They didn't have bacon like with them that they were throwing around, or not that would justify a hate crime charge in my view. But yeah, no, that is ridiculous. And so the Muslim Brotherhood's involved with that. Is that kind of what you're?
Well, see that. Well, I'll give you a little. This would be an interesting podcast for you to have one day. One of the biggest trials, the government trials that ever took place in the United States, took place in 2008. It was called the Holy Land Foundation. You should look into it. Very interesting. And what wound up happening in that is that, and the whole reason why they had that was because they were trying to see who in the United States was funding terrorism. And the FBI found documents from the Muslim Brotherhood who now have ties to CAIR. And in that documentation, it said that the way to take over the United States is from within. Take over the government by landing people in government spots, take over the schools, take over the businesses. And basically, that's how you take over America and you spread Islam. You take it from within, and you take advantage of basically the American system. And so I have been watching this happen now for a very, very long time. I'm somebody who lived 9/11. I ran from the building, so I'm a little bit more passionate about this than maybe the average guy. But nonetheless, that is the Muslim Brotherhood in a nutshell. That is CAIR in a nutshell. So when somebody like me, when I see things like this, I'm saying to myself, okay, I know what that is. I mean, they had a press conference. These Islamic guys, instead of just blowing it off, they had a press conference, and the guy starts crying. Oh, they came close to us. They were live streaming it. They made me look at bacon. And it's like, really? And they do that basically to shut people down so they won't talk about it anymore. And sure. I'm assuming, and you know what, Patrick, this is so insightful for me because, you know, it's the young people under 40 years old just don't know enough about this because the media is never going to tell the story. And of course, you know, it's not happening from anybody on the right in terms of major names in podcasting.
Yeah, I agree. To your general point that just because everyone's so focused on, you know, the Israel stuff, that they're ignoring the extent to which Islam is operating as a noxious political force in America. Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. And yeah, I'm sure there are Islamic interests that are absolutely benefiting from that. So
yeah. So in that vein, two more questions before I let you go here as we get to the top of the hour. When you look at the growth of families in America, you know, Christian white men, Christian white women, they're not having families big like they used to anymore. And your audience, is that because it's just too expensive to be an American, or is it because the media and colleges have watered down the importance of the family unit?
Yeah, it's probably both. I think people we don't have a society that's as conducive to family formation as we used to. And as a result of that, it's just something that people are, I think in older generations, yeah, it was just something you did. And if you didn't do it, especially by the time you were 30, then there's like something wrong with you. These days, it's more, I don't want to say it's like a niche thing, but there could be economic factors, but I really do think it's the kind of thing that like, it's the people who are like very intentional about getting married, having a family. I think it tends to be more religious, anecdotally from the people I know, tends to be the more religious types. Yeah. That end up, because they just have like, I don't know, their family is religious. They're surrounded by people that have those values in a way that others don't. There probably are some economic concerns that people have. I mean, it's the kind of thing where, yeah, people might not feel as economically secure as, if you look at who's having the most kids, it's people at the extreme ends of the income spectrum. It's the people who are, you know, uh, you know, 8 kids from 5 different baby daddies living on welfare in the inner city on the one end, and then on the other end, it's people that are like, that have FU money basically, and it's like, okay, then you're just like an aristocrat, and what else are you gonna do but have like a nice family and so a lot of it's just kind of middle class people that are not doing this. But yeah, I think in general it's one problem is that as time goes on, and you actually are seeing this across the world, fascinatingly and horrifyingly enough, that men are becoming more conservative, women are becoming more liberal. Doesn't mean there aren't plenty of great right of center women out there, but it means that, like, generally speaking, even some women that would like want to get married, maybe even though they're liberal. Oh, all the guys I'm meeting are like into Andrew Tate or something, So, yeah, it's there is kind of an ongoing. You see this in its most pronounced form in South Korea, where like the men are like hardcore, like pro incel sort of guys, and like the women are just like hardcore feminists, and yeah, they have a very low fertility rate there. That's not the only factor. But when you have men and women that are just like at odds with each other, that's going to be a huge obstacle to family formation and bringing in the next generation. So I also think the last thing I'll say on that is people have a lot of distractions these days. If you go back 200 years ago, it's like, oh, if you don't have a family, you're just like staring at a wooden wall and in a on the prairie or something. So yeah, of course you're going to do that. Now, yeah, man, you can just scroll social media, watch pornography. You can play video games. You can, if you make money, you can travel anywhere you want to go. And there's nothing wrong with traveling. Nothing inherently wrong with video games or TV. But yeah, it's the ability to distract you from these other things is far greater than it was in the past. So yeah, there are a lot of factors involved, but it's just a very unfortunate situation.
Two more things. One is I'm going to ask you to express the concerns of your audience. The second one, I just want to get a yes or no answer. I want to throw a couple of names at you. So the first one I want to ask you about, just give me a 2-minute answer if you can. AI. So I've got tremendous concerns about AI, not for me per se. Again, 56 years old, I could be retired if I wanted to. I'm more concerned for people 40 and under about what it could do potentially to eviscerate jobs as we know them. Are your demographics, your 32-year-old white males, are they expressing concern, or are they expressing jubilee about AI and what that is going to lead to?
I'd say most are concerned. There's a small subset of my followers and people I know on Twitter who are tech optimists generally. I think most people are either pretty apprehensive and concerned, or a lot of people just think it's a bubble. They think that people are overstating the extent to which AI is going to change things, that they're exaggerating the timeline during which this change will happen. So I think I have a lot of people that are just like, a lot of followers who are kind of casually interested in it, but think it's a little overblown. And yeah, you do have AI alarmists like Scott Alexander and the people at Project or at AI 2027, I think it was, where these are some AI researchers that think that AI is going to, destroy the world in literally like 2 years. People like Eliezer Yudkowsky. So I think a lot of people on who follow me are like familiar with that stuff, and they just like, that's not going to happen. But yeah, I know people have valid concerns about job loss and whatever else. It's a kind of a talking point that pro AI people have been making for a while now, that every time there was this new technological wave in the past that totally reshaped man's social relationships, his relationship to production, to industry, that while it, in the past, these definitely did away with jobs, they created new jobs. That is true. But I think that when you consider AI and automation, robotics, all of those things combined, the potential for a far greater disruption in world political economy is far greater. So I personally share some of these concerns. I think that the timeline that people provide for when we're going to deal with this stuff is they kind of exaggerate it. So yeah, I'm more concerned about the job loss in the near future than I am with kind of some of these doomsday scenarios about, AI killing all of us. But, in the long run, yeah, those are valid concerns to have.
Absolutely. So I'm gonna ask you about 4 different things here, and just either give me yes or no or a name. So Charlie Kirk, and just do me a favor. We'll just do this. We'll take my name out of it and your name out of it, right? So we're not options.
Okay.
Who do you think, when you look out there right now, who do you think would be the likely person to fill the shoes? Maybe not completely, but who do you think will be the next Charlie Kirk?
Yeah, it's hard to say. So whoever that person would have to A, be a talented media figure, and B, be a talented political operative. And most of the podcasters we've been talking about are the former, they're not the latter. Charlie Kirk was great with normal people. He wasn't just a provocateur, like kind of a shock jock character. He was able to appeal to normal people, to build bridges, to a guy you could sit down at dinner in front of, billionaires and other respectable people. I'm sure conservative intellectuals, all sorts of types, and be able to give them the confidence that they can support him in doing something great, something grand, and that he's not going to be the guy to mess it up, essentially. So I don't really know who comes to mind. I think now, you have people running TPUSA. I don't know. They seem to be some of these people: Andrew Colford, Tyler Boyer, Erica Kirk. They seem to be holding things together. But in terms of like a single figure that could play that role, I don't think anyone, if anyone, is on the scene already who can do all of the above. We don't know who that person is yet.
I'm going to agree.
We've seen in passing, they have yet to rise to the occasion.
I'm going to agree with you, because in the same way, your generation had Charlie Kirk, my generation had Rush Limbaugh, and nobody has filled the shoes, not even close, of Rush Limbaugh yet. And I think one of the reasons that Limbaugh was special was because he could give you the negativity, but he always made you feel as if there was promise tomorrow. And right now, everybody's caught up in the fact that we're a doomsday country. And so people want to have that upside look at things, and nobody could deliver it like Rush. So I'm with you on that. That kind of leads me to the next thing here. I was going to ask you, your age group right now, if you were to take 1,000 of your listeners and say to them, who is the one person aside from me that if you only had one chance to listen to him because you align with them, who in podcasting is that one name? Who would they pick?
So other than you and I, who would I pick as kind of the one name for people to listen to? That's a good question, because it would be someone I'm friends with, and it would be someone, so I'm obviously choosing one friend over others. Man, that's difficult. Let me scroll my timeline a bit here, because a lot of the people I like the most are just Twitter posters. They're like pundits. They write on Twitter, and maybe they write an article here and there, but they don't necessarily do podcasts. Oh, you know who I'd say? I'd say John Doyle. John Doyle just launched a new show on The Blaze. Everyone should check it out. He's and he's unlike, I would appreciate you being charitable and saying that younger people are under 40. Because once you get to mid 30s, you start wondering, am I still young? You got the youngsters telling you that you're not, and you're like, okay, but I don't really feel old yet. But John Doyle actually I think he's like 23. He's got a big YouTube following, and so he can actually reach younger people that I probably can't. So definitely,
I'll look into him. And let me tell you something. As again, 36 years old, man, you are young. It's a great time to be alive. 40s is awesome too. You got a long time. That said, last question here. If again, I'm asking you to speak for your audience. If JD Vance, for whatever reason, could not be the next president of the United States, who do you think your supporters would want to see be the Republican nominee when Trump's done?
Yeah, that's actually a good question. I think a lot of people haven't put too much thought into it because JD Vance just seems like the obvious successor. He's a fitting successor. I think my audience would have said Tucker up until relatively recently. Maybe some of them would still say that. They wouldn't say MTG. Maybe some would say Bannon. Most probably wouldn't say Bannon. I don't know. The thing is, there's no obvious answer. It would depend who on, the debate stage, who of the actual people who could actually get the nomination are probably the biggest on immigration. And, DeSantis got a lot of flack for running in 2020. He should not have done that. I like DeSantis, but he's angling for, by all appearances, angling for a 2028 run. And he is going to counter signal Trump. Part of that is going to be saying that Trump didn't deliver on everything X, Y, and Z. Okay, well, I'm not huge on that. It's also going to make it harder for him to be president because Trump is going to, kind of treat it like The Apprentice, and people are going to have to earn his approval. But at the same time, if someone comes along and they're offering an immigration moratorium, which is something DeSantis has supported in the past. I think a lot of my followers who, previously kind of attacked DeSantis during the primary, they could kind of turn that around. People have floated Rubio as someone who's a possibility. So unfortunately, I don't have a good answer, but I think these are some of the people that my followers would like. It's working with the best the best of all available options.
Patrick, where can people who are listening and watching this, where would they be able to find you, follow you, and support what you're doing?
Sure, thank you. I appreciate the invitation. It's been a wonderful discussion. They can find me at patrickcasey.com. That's my Substack. I write there sometimes. I have my podcast on there, Restoring Order. That can also be found on Spotify. But if you just go to @RestoreOrderUSA on Twitter, you can find that's where I post the most often. Post the links to the articles I've had published recently and so forth. So,
Patrick, I appreciate you in a big way. Make sure that you and your family have a great Thanksgiving.
Likewise, thank you.
All right, that's it for me. I want to say one more time, thank you to Patrick. And I want to say to all of you, thank you for the nonstop support you give to our podcast, sharing it online, telling people about us, sending me such nice notes and messages. Not all of you. Some people listen, write nasty things, but that's okay. I wish you and your family a break from all this craziness. I wish you all a break from the evil that we keep on having to face on a daily basis here in the United States. Give thanks tomorrow. Give thanks for your family. Give thanks for your country. And give thanks to your God. Do not forget DMLCBD.com. We've got the $20 giveaway. We are out of half the products. So if you haven't gone in there yet, you better go in. I don't think there's more than another day or two. And I think we're going to be having to close that down pretty soon. That's it for me. On behalf of Ryan, Denny, Ashley, Kelly, Mary, and myself, may you have the greatest of Thanksgivings. May God bless you, your family, the President, and the United States of America. And Patrick Casey. We'll talk to you soon.
Get the Dennis Michael Lynch podcast every day by subscribing on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and download the DML News app from the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store for breaking news, merchandise, films, exclusive content, and Team DML.